So New York Post launched their pilot podcast with Donald Trump. This is an inaugural podcast episode titled One-on-One with President Trump on the LA riots, Gavin Newsom, and Elon Musk.
Yeah, and notice that you already didn't even name the host of the podcast because she really opened the room up for Donald to really take the reins of this inaugural podcast episode of her own show.
That's right. This is Pod Force One with Miranda Devine.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know if she's related to the Workaholics star.
Adam?
Sure.
It's possible. There could be some lineage
This is
there.
the political wing of the family. We don't know, but...
we do know she's Australian.
That's right, the Australian wing of the New York Post. There's a lot to talk about with this episode. I personally would love to jump into the technicals.
Please.
Unless you have any notes, further ado.
No, I think most of our notes on this episode really do pertain to the technical department.
Well, honestly, disappointment.
Yeah.
Just going to go flat out and say, bummer. It was a bummer.
For a podcast of this stature, to have, private access to the President of the United States, to just miss all of your marks when it comes to the technical side of things, really disappointing.
Let's start off with the good, the bad, and the ugly of the technicals, okay, before really diving in deep.
Please, yes.
The good for me was the Barry Lyndon aperture.
Yes.
They took a note out of Kubrick's playbook, as you will see on the close-up shot. So let's analyze Trump's close-up frame, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see the focus in his eyes, kind of in his nose. Everything else, so out of focus, so soft.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're working with NASA lenses, an f-stop probably somewhere around 0.7.
Yeah, obviously lenses crafted by space engineers, some of the best in the world.
Now, I don't know if it was NASA. I know we're shifting away from public institutions, so this could have been a private effort. SpaceX, Rocket Lab could have donated these.
Yeah.
Blue Origin.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
A myriad of space programs could have chipped in on this production, for sure.
But so why is this so good using such a tight lens? I'm going to say because it works so well with the lighting.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, you could use like a lot of fill light and hit a low f-stop with regular lenses. But for them, when they're using, very soft lights in the background to fill the space, almost candlelit, right? It's giving it a very authentic feel. The lenses of being that low of an f-stop that they can really capture that ambiance as is without an artificial kind of fill light. They're not using a light mat of any sort. They're shooting in the presidential library.
Yeah.
So I think they really wanted to say, this is what it feels like to be here. We're capturing it as is. I appreciate that kind of creativity when it comes to production.
Yeah. I mean, this is a house that's been standing since before, Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla was doing stuff with light bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
So, there wasn't really electricity for years when the White House was established. And so it is nice to see that the New York Post really paid attention to, the history of this building, the historical significance of, it's been standing forever. Imagine having a one-on-one with the president when it was like, the 18th century?
Oh, I couldn't
some of the
imagine.
19th century.
Oh, Thomas Paine is rolling in his grave right now. I mean, he would have been an incredible podcaster, right?
Yeah, a lot of common sense on that guy.
Could you imagine that? Common Sense with Thomas Paine. There it is.
Yeah, that's
what it would be.
Yeah.
Yep. Dave Smith, take notes.
Yeah.
That one's for you.
Yeah.
Now, this was recorded in the presidential library with Trump saying the next one will be in the Oval Office. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Kind of doing a little carrot on a stick.
Perhaps the next one we'll do will be the Oval Office. That represents an even bigger part.
Yeah.
I think just saying, look, if this one goes well, that's like I'm going to take you in my bedroom. This is like we're in the playroom.
Yeah, the Oval Office is where the magic happens. I mean, Trump, in his words, says the Oval Office represents an even bigger part. Mm-hmm. I don't know of what. Yeah. But it definitely is a significant room in the White House.
Well, let's go back to the technicals for a second. Staying on the good, something that fascinated me with the soft focus was that we couldn't see any of the titles of the books there.
Yeah.
I was curious, I wanted to know, is I Am a Lala on the shelves?
Yeah.
Some classic DFW.
Is The Audacity of Hope?
Sure, I want to know what Trump is reading, Atomic Habits.
What happened with Hillary Clinton?
it could be anyone's guess because we couldn't see it.
There
You
could
never
be
know.
any kinds of books
Sure.
from, former residents of the home.
That's right. And I mean, I honestly wanted to see if Art of the Deal was on the shelves. I would think Trump would be promoting his own book.
Yeah.
Look, if I'm a podcast host, we're doing an interview, and I have, a book that I wrote myself,
Yeah.
I would want it on the wall behind us as kind of decor.
Of course.
It's the easiest promotion. I
what
mean,
Mel Robbins does.
oh, come on. It's the easiest marketing play in the book.
Yeah.
Have your book on the shelf. Let's get into the bad of the technicals. I think we're on the same page here. I'm going to say it was the split screen, right down the middle 80s approach.
Immediately ages it. The second that split screen comes into effect, you're like, what decade is this?
Well, it is an homage to those kind of movies.
It is.
Someone answering the telephone, boom, screen comes across. But
it makes you wonder why.
we missed it in the editing bay, though, because we ran this through a simulation, guys.
Yeah.
Because there's a gray bar that comes down the middle for the split screen. Guess what? It's not centered.
Yeah, Donald gets, cut out a little bit. He does. I would say it's probably like maybe 45%, 55%.
Give a mouse a cookie and see what they take.
Yeah, Miranda gets, the clear majority of screen space. And
This is a game of football, okay? It's yardage. When you're doing a split screen, it should be half and half. I would actually say give Trump a little bit more. He's the host, right?
Of course, yeah.
No, excuse me. I mean...
No, that's a mouse who's earned his cookie.
I said he's the host because I was so enraptured by him. He might as well have been the host. In fact, there was only one over-the-shoulder shot in this, and it was of Trump through Miranda, over Miranda's shoulder.
Yeah.
We did not get the reverse shot.
But I do want to say that, given the split screen effect, which is used throughout the episode very widely, it makes you wonder, were they in the same room? Was Miranda with Trump in that library?
Let's elaborate. Did you feel like it was like a Zoom call because of the half and half?
It was reminiscent of a Zoom call.
But she was right there in the over the shoulder. We see her.
It could be a stand-in or a sit-in in this situation.
Because we don't have the reverse shot. And again, this is the problem without having typical Hollywood podcast coverage. I don't know if there was a limitation due to the size of the space, but when Kamala Harris, who was running for president in 2024, went on Call Her Daddy podcast, I read somewhere that they built the set for her to come to. So it's like, we could certainly, I mean, do they not have the money?
I mean,
if they didn't have the space in there, they could extend it a little bit. I mean, sure, it would be a little bit of a facade, but let's get the shot.
Yeah, I mean, Trump talks about building out a ballroom in the White House at this point. So, that's a very special project that he has on his mind at the moment. It's supposed to be done in the next 18 months.
And I'm going to gift the White House the most beautiful ballroom you've ever seen. We're working on it right now.
Why not, build out an actual podcast studio in the White House so it's just so easy?
Well, you would think that would be his next project.
You would think.
Trump really won the election through podcasts.
Yes.
So why not give back to the art form?
The community.
And say the Presidential Podcast Studio, PPS. Let's get it going.
I think that would be an excellent idea. I mean,
I think taxpayers in the Rust Belt would be overjoyed to pay for that kind of thing.
It certainly modernizes the White House.
Think about it. This is the U.S. on the world podcasting stage. So, to me, a pilot podcast like this is supposed to show America's strength.
Yeah.
It's supposed to show, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
So with some of these technicals, it's like when we're making these mistakes, how's that going to stack up to President Xi on a podcast in China? How's that going to stack up to, I don't know, Putin's doing, React podcast content? I don't know.
No. I can't imagine either of them putting up with split screen effects.
No.
And it's certainly not, the most egregious mistakes.
Well, we're going to get to it.
Okay.
We're going to build a little bit of suspense.
I don't mean to step on your toes.
No, I just feel like with more autocratic countries, is the podcasting, do you think, a little more hammered out? Do you think Trump was being almost too democratic? Maybe with the editing saying, hey, we're just going to vote on these effects. We're going to let people take it.
His fist was a little loose.
Should he have been a little tighter on the cranking down on the production?
On the New York Post's leash. I mean, yeah, he should have, because if you want to be respected in the podcasting game, the way you do that, I mean, just look at Alex Cooper. You have to have this stuff down to a science.
Before we get to the ugly,
okay,
let's just go over a couple things.
Okay.
This is not your typical podcast because we're not using traditional mics. We're actually using lav clip-on mics.
Yeah.
So this is more of a 60 minutes and 42 minutes kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, a full hour is packed into these 42 minutes, and it's just it's reminiscent of a sit-down interview, and it's I don't know if they really use it to that full effect.
But this is a podcast. Are we saying, hey, we're getting a little more experimental, right? Maybe
Yeah.
the New York Post is saying, you could call it corny using a lav, but we're going to jump into that because guess what? It works for the sound.
Yeah.
We get to save money on a boom op.
A lot of money, truckloads.
But why not just have a plant mic and hide that from? Do we not have the tech there?
I don't know. I mean, Trump prides himself on transparency. His administration is all about transparency.
So where is the reverse shot on Miranda?
They might just not have had an extra camera on set that day.
Okay.
It's possible that the New York Post was running a little bit of roughshod production when it came to, shipping everything to the White House.
This is like an undergrad thesis film, though. It
yeah.
was really just...
It certainly struggles.
They were running by the seat of their pants.
Yeah. It was certainly disappointing to see where they cut the budget on some of these, choices.
We're losing money on the production because there aren't any sponsors. So you're really going to see the repercussions of not using Coinbase,
Yeah.
not using MoonPay, not
Yeah.
using BetterHelp's, cash reserves for the podcasting
Yeah.
departments.
No factor meals.
Because let's look at like Trump's frame, for example, right?
Yeah.
He has a glass of water with what looks like a cup holder on top of the water.
Yeah.
I don't know if that someone didn't know how to use a cup holder.
Maybe they got the idea of a coaster wrong.
There could
I think the coaster's usually supposed to go underneath the cup to prevent watermarks on a table.
Yeah, there could have been. Sorry, that's what I meant. A coaster, not cup holder. There could have been a fly around. I'm all jostled up from this.
Yeah. This cup goes unsipped. I mean, Trump was not thirsty.
There was also a napkin by it. Now, to me, I would have had the napkin on the other side. You take the napkin, put it on your...
On your lap or
on your lap.
over your shirt collar?
But again, his tie was also functioning as a napkin. It was covering his groin.
Yeah.
It's a very long tie.
Certainly loincloth-esque.
Really just covering his taint, balls, and
Gooch.
penile region.
Yeah. And, the tie was deep red. He had a blue suit, white shirt. I mean, he's always representing the red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
You got to hand
catch.
it to him.
That's
on
a great
that.
catch.
It's really, he
USA.
knows, he knows where he is.
The reference? USA?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, I think so. And, that while the napkin not used once to dab the corners of his mouth.
Do you think he was a little nervous? Was he being polite? What's the play there? Why not take a sip?
I didn't think about that. I mean, I don't know if it was shyness. I think he just had so much to talk about, so much to share in this episode that
He was loquacious as hell. I mean, this is a motor mouth at work.
Yeah, and when your mouth is a motor, it's not really much of a depository for water. You got to keep things running, and that's what he did for the 42 minutes here. And he, Miranda introduces him as, what is it again? An Apex Alpha.
Kicking off this week is the Apex Alpha of global politics, President Donald Trump.
Well,
Or Apex.
Apex Twin Alpha in my
That's
book,
it.
but yes, Apex Alpha.
Yeah.
So Trump's going AA, which actually correlates into, he's talking about his family.
Yeah.
Fred, who doesn't drink, doesn't smoke.
Yeah.
He told Trump, don't drink, don't smoke.
Trump has, this famous history of being a teetotaler, no sips of alcohol, so that's why stuck to water on his side table here. But let's get back to the Sergio Leone of it all, the good and the bad and the ugly. We haven't hit the ugly yet on the technical
The
side of this
ugly.
podcast.
This one hurts.
Yeah,
This one hurts because we've witnessed this
yeah,
in almost every single podcast we've covered.
yeah,
A Looney Tunes asleep at the wheel oaf of a camera op.
yeah. I mean, this camera operator might not have been asleep at the wheel. I think he was high strung as hell.
I think he was just high, period.
Yeah.
I think we should relaunch Nixon's war on drugs just for this cam op.
Yeah, I mean, he was certainly, on the lever of the tripod. He was tilting this thing, but it was always delayed.
So let's get into it.
Okay, yeah, please.
Why is this a problem? We have wide No, sorry. We have close-ups. I'm thinking the wide was the over-the-shoulder. That's
Yeah.
functioning as the wide for
Yeah.
this. Okay? But on Trump's close-up, this is a major issue. The headroom was as thin as the aperture.
Yeah.
So he's, bulging at the top of the frame like an iceberg.
Yeah.
Okay?
His forehead could be cut off at any moment.
At any moment, and the cam op is playing around, tilting it up and down. Trump's head is bursting through the frame at so many points throughout this. We're just going to start playing them.
Yeah.
There were so many, so you're going to see it on the screen, him just flying through the top. It's like a trampoline, up, down, up, down. There was a really egregious moment. I want to get to it. The camera up was panning around 16 minutes, 43 seconds, was panning on Trump. Of course, he was trying to favor the thirds.
Yeah.
In the real estate business, I did great. I go into show business. I have The Apprentice. I didn't do anything else.
He was trying to keep it cinematic. I appreciate
course.
that. But again, he was panning when he should have been
At what
tilting
cost?
because then at 17:09, Trump popped the fuck out of that frame.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm a rebel.
The thing is, Trump's an energetic guy. This is a guy who has so much to share, and he's going to get animated. He's going to sit up.
Yes,
he's
he's
going to
gonna
reset
be
his
moving.
stature in the seat, and you
Okay.
have to be prepared for that. As a camera op, you should be doing your research.
If the subject is moving up, we're going to tilt up with them.
Yeah.
And then we're not going to tilt back down. That's the mistake.
Yeah.
Because you tilt back down and then Trump goes back up. He goes too late.
Yeah.
Keep it up. If you know he's going to be there, it's fine to give him a little bit more headroom. Or guess what? How many times do we have to say, just punch out a little bit? Because in the edit, we could punch in. They're shooting 4K, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they on 4K?
I think so.
The way he talked about the radical left is the way I really think the camera operator was.
Yeah.
They were disgraceful.
I mean, they certainly seemed like these were targeted attacks, I think.
This is someone that's never read the cinematographer's handbook, and it really shows.
Yeah, I mean, they
It's
should have
disturbing.
been screened more thoroughly because we could have had, a leftist infidel in the White House.
I don't care if this is some avant-garde bullshit.
Yeah.
This isn't a European podcast. I don't care how, Macron is podcasting in France, okay? What his headroom looks like. This is America.
Yeah.
Have it big, punch out.
When it's like
Give him the space.
again, for a leftist, they're all about empathy. But what about, being an empath and sensing when the subject of your frame is
about
going to
to
be moving, is going to be a little bit animated.
Yeah.
You have to be sensing and feeling and proactive.
So
And
let's.
that's just sickening. It's just disgraceful to see it on
Well,
the
let me ask you
national
this:
stage.
what do you think was going through the production coordinator's head? Because when they hired this, did they get this person off Fiverr? It felt like there was no research that had been done. Also, it's like, where was the camera supervisor? Was the DP on a break?
It's possible. What, maybe checking out the Oval Office, getting a full tour of the White House while this shoot's going on? I mean,
This goes against the Eighth Amendment. It's cruel and unusual punishment on both Trump, on both the audience, on both the podcasting community. We look weak.
Yeah.
Guess
it's
what?
not fair to Miranda.
How does this affect Russia, Ukraine?
Yeah.
Putin, Zelensky, they see this podcast. They see, this is
I
the
see an
kind of
opening.
This is the kind of camera operator that Americans are trusting
Yeah.
to shoot their president.
Yeah.
Disgraceful.
Yeah.
Absolutely effing disgraceful.
This is a weak country if we can't get our podcasts in order.
I get that it's a pilot. I get that, but
Yeah. But
and
you're
that's
working for the
benefit-
New York Post.
New York Post. This
This is a
should be
prestigious
prestige
institution.
podcasting. Prestige
Yes.
podcasting. PP.
Yeah.
And this was just dirt.
Yeah.
It was dirt.
This was crap. And again, just zoom out a little bit. Give Trump a little bit of room to breathe.
Cheat the
It's
frame.
easy.
Cheat the frame. And also, look, if I was production coordinator on that, I would have wanted to cover my bases a little bit more.
Yeah.
What the hell was the shot list like? We're going to get close up, over the shoulder, and then split screen?
How does that make any sense?
Get another camera on Trump.
Yeah.
2 close-ups.
Yeah.
Just in case the first guy fails
Eats shit.
miserably.
Yeah.
Have the second one just be a little bit more medium bust shot, waist up.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's pretty simple.
We'll
There's
fix
plenty
it in
of
post.
solutions. And again, this is episode 1. We want to see this fixed.
Well, I'm
as this
shocked that
episode
they put
progresses,
this out, but
for
again...
number 1, yeah.
No, and this happened over 10 times.
Oh,
over
easily,
10 times.
Easily. I mean, I'd go past a dozen.
Over 10 times.
But again, that's the ugly of the episode. I mean, there's still So there's some good throughout the episode.
Well, hold on a sec. I mean, I don't think we got through everything. Well,
Okay.
listen, if we want them to fix their mistakes, let's just put it all on the table.
Okay. All right. Might as well just rip off the Band-Aid now.
What was happening at 26 minutes and 39 seconds? Audio department doesn't get a pass just because the cam op is a complete and total moron.
And like Ivanka would say, Dad, give me a break. How many times you have to tell me? I said, I'm going to...
I mean, someone dropped trash.
It sounded like,
behind the camera.
someone was taking out the trash. I mean,
There was some thudding,
it was a clink.
some clambering. I don't know what you're doing when you're in the room with the president. If you're going to be carrying or
It was probably some production assistant
horsing around, it's just
fucking around on their phone.
Yeah. It's like, no, go out and get some coffee. Do whatever you need to do. Just be out of the room. You don't need to be in there.
No, when we're shooting, when the red light is on outside, hey, when this is on air, when we're going,
That's not a playroom for PAs.
that's the time. Yes, let's put your phone on do not disturb. At best, take out a book.
Yeah.
If you really have nothing to do.
You're in a library, the presidential library.
I think this is a result of making an audio choice here with the Lobs.
Yeah.
If we use directional mics, maybe this could have been avoided. I don't know what they were doing in the background that made this sound,
Yeah.
but, Lobs are going to pick up more...
More of the ambiance, more of the environment around you, too.
Yeah, directional, like the thing with, a boom mic is think of that, audio as a line. We're like shooting into the heart of the subject. We're really just going to cone in on that
Laser
audio.
focused.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of going to blur out. Think about it like the, soft focus, right? We're going to be tight on Trump, tight on Miranda.
Yeah.
And then the audio around them is going to be pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Again, mistakes happen. Someone dropped something. Someone popped a balloon.
Yeah.
But, we're not playing balloons tower defense in the background on our phone when the president is doing an interview.
It's really unbecoming.
Horrible look for America.
Awful.
Graphics department.
Yeah.
Graphics department is next on the chopping block.
Sloppy.
What do you think about the transition they used 3 times?
And they do. They really do. They admire her.
This looked like it was 6 frames per second. This thing looked so choppy. I was wondering what was going on. I was like, was there lag on our end? Was YouTube not rendering this fully?
Yep.
But this happened on 3 different occasions. So it's, this is their animation. This is what they're working with.
This is their animation
This is what
department.
this is what they shipped.
Yep.
The product they shipped to
Yep.
plug into the inaugural episode starring Donald Trump.
I think the problem is we're already seeing some of the effects of Doge happen. And look, I'm not liking it. We're cutting jobs. There needs to be podcast production set supervisor. There needs to be another podcasting camera operator. There needs to be a backup boom op. I don't care how confident you are with the Lavs. I don't care.
Yeah.
We need backup audio. And when we're cutting jobs left and right, okay,
You're going to see some blowback.
Americans deserve to be able to get nice podcasting jobs. And, I'm not saying they need tenure.
No.
That they're producing forever. They're not on the Supreme Court.
They don't need to be unionized.
They're not on the Supreme
Of course
Court,
not.
no. But, when we're outsourcing podcasting to private companies,
Yeah.
are my taxes going to Podbean, private podcasting company?
Probably not. They're probably going to Blackwater.
If Blackwater's producing these podcasts, they need to tighten this shit up.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful.
You need to make sure you're compensating your graphics team, or else you're going to get graphics that are 6 frames per second. And that looks like
So
shit.
you think these were Blackwater podcasting guys?
graphics? It's
Yeah, the
possible.
graphics department might have been Blackwater. No, they've rebranded so many times.
It's possible. I mean, these graphics, I can't
Eric
stress it
Prince,
enough.
you better fucking straighten this shit out because podcasting with the president, you're gonna make a joke out of it.
It's got to look glossy. You're gonna want a glossy podcast when you're
Right.
when the president, excuse me, is the guest. I mean, he's sitting down giving you 42 minutes. You're gonna want to make sure this looks beautiful.
Now, someone like Eric might say, "Hey, I'm cutting costs with Blackwater by we're paying U.S. troops $1,000, $2,000 a day for to protect high-profile people in the Middle East, right?"
Yeah.
But then they say, "Well, we'll cut costs by get some Chilean commandos in there. We'll pay them $100 a day.
Yeah.
We'll pay them like shit."
Yeah. I mean, they also
Guess what? When you're bringing in Chilean commandos to a podcast production, they're used to Chilean podcasts. I don't know how they do it down there.
Yeah.
Again, I'm like, are these guys even getting drug tested? Because I think the cam op was high.
I
You don't
think
tilt
it's
that much unless
plausible.
you're tripping.
Yeah.
private company. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to do these kind of drug tests.
Yeah.
So
It's a liability. I
just
mean, it's just a
saying.
risk. You got to keep that in mind.
it's a risk. It could pay off.
Yeah.
Could pay off, but I
Probably
don't know.
not.
No.
And you got to keep in mind, too, that I think they also cut the makeup department this episode.
Makeup department was non-existent.
I mean-
Blackwater makeup went down the tubes.
I mean, you take one look at Trump's hand. I don't know what happened. I think
yeah.
he's been using the pen too hard. I mean, talked about Joe Biden getting by on the auto pen, which was a massive crime for the 4 years that Biden was doing his crap. And the auto pen, huge crime.
They could do anything they wanted because the auto pen was the power.
And you can tell where the auto pen is used, can't you?
Oh, you can see it easily. Yeah, I mean, auto pens are easy to, if you know that. So.
How?
I think Trump is prideful in using his manual pen,
Yeah.
but I think it's taking a toll on his one hand. His hand looked like shit.
And that's his golfing hand. I mean, I think he's going to do the majority of the swinging with that hand, so maybe he's just not applying enough Hawaiian Tropic on that
Yeah.
wrist.
But this thing looked gangrenous, and where is the fucking makeup department to fix that?
It looked like he had trench hand foot.
I was worried for him, and I shouldn't be worried about the president when I'm watching a podcast. I should know that he's totally fine. Like, it's all good.
Do you want to say the thing about Miranda with her teeth? I don't know if we should go there. Again,
I don't-
makeup department,
It's just,
the teeth.
it was a little distracting. Miranda, you just want to be careful. A little bit of lipstick got smeared on her teeth.
Look,
right from
and
the
she
beginning.
looked great. And she looked great.
She
But
did look great.
This, a makeup person is going to catch these. It's not even a mistake. It happens when you're getting ready. Shit.
But the power of a makeup department is that they know to say, "Hey, cut the fucking recording. We're gonna fix this right
We're gonna
now
fix it right now."
before any more words
Yes.
are uttered."
Yep.
And that they just were gone. And so was the quality control when it came to personal appearances on this episode.
Before we move out of technicals, I have to get this off my chest because
Yeah.
I really think it was the biggest blunder. I mean, this was like
Oh, please share.
3208. We're going to see an insane screw up from the camera department. This
yeah.
is a screw up from an absolute screwball team.
Yeah.
We softened the focus on Trump's face, and then the headroom was crap.
Yeah, and you've got the
Just a
dome.
new thing. I mean, who would think that a drone turns out to be such a powerful weapon?
Let's get into it. I mean, a lot of this, I felt like it was hard to focus because of these technicals.
Yeah, easily. It just it really overrode a lot of the conversation.
I don't know how. I mean, realistically, we're LA guys.
Yeah.
Trump talks about the LA riots.
Yeah.
Don't like the word riot.
No. Riots for a couple of burnt Waymos. I mean, what are those even good for anyway? They're dog shit.
They're state surveillance.
They're Google.
That
They're
goes
Google
against
mech.
our constitutional rights. We have a private company
Yeah.
that's recording people, working with law enforcement. Again, this is just an invasion of privacy, whether or not we're going to continue with the Patriot Act in the early 2000s and just erode our rights. I'm not for that. We both live in LA.
Yeah.
This is wrong. We don't support ICE.
Yeah.
Obviously. I mean, again, Trump, I think at the end of the day, I think it's safe to say Trump's going to have a different political idea than us.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say. And we're going to say it pretty cavalier.
Yeah.
Just going to put it out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't need to dive into it.
No.
Well, this is us analyzing a podcast. Of course, we have political opinions. Of course, when I hear things like Trump saying, we wanted to dump water from the Pacific onto the fires that were happening in Altadena and the Palisades, but we couldn't to protect fish.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is a problem of you're dumping salt water onto land. You're eroding the land. You can't build after that.
You can't.
Nothing's going to grow.
Yeah, you can't grow stuff for fucking decades.
And keep in mind, we had Canada and Mexico
Yeah.
sending firefighters to help out of their own goodwill
Yeah.
for California. I mean, we need to be a state built on cooperation and kindness,
Yeah.
right?
He's talking about, half pipes. He's building half pipes of water. And, there's something he was bickering with Gavin about, where the water should go from the Pacific.
Tremendous amounts of water. They put it into the Pacific. And you have half pipes. These are big, massive pipes. They're all empty. They were. As you know, I got the water to go down, but I told him to do it in my first term.
And he reversed the pipe. So I'm wondering if we're sending fresh water into the Pacific. It was hazy.
Trump was getting a little hazy. And look, I mean, my girlfriend's parents lived in Altadena. I mean, you're seeing this stuff happen firsthand. You're seeing people forced out of their homes. They have to live in Airbnbs for years.
Yeah.
Even if your home is still there, it gets smoked out. You have to throw out everything.
Yeah.
Tear down the walls, tear up the flooring,
It's
redo all that
devastating.
shit. Is FEMA sending money? I really do think there is going to be a difference in opinions with us and him.
Oh, easily. It's just going to happen.
I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to be cavalier about it.
Yeah. I mean, hell, we're a podcast. Miranda's got a podcast. And I just want to note that Miranda was, starting some beef with fellow podcaster Gavin Newsom.
It was clear that she was trying to fuel some sort of fire between the two.
Are you going to arrest Gavin Newsom?
Well, he's not doing a good job.
Yeah, and she may have been overplaying her hand. I mean, this is her first episode. It's not like her production is airtight. So, I don't know. It wasn't a great look for Miranda to be, trying to get Trump to weigh in on Gavin on her behalf of look at this other podcaster doing things wrong.
Well,
It's
right,
just
and there's
weird.
already, I think, a difference in kind of political ideas with Newsom and Trump, right? I mean, we've looked at Newsom's podcast. I don't know how much we can get into that, only because we're not going to be covering Newsom's take on these issues.
Yeah.
Next week, the Costco guys were just on the LOL podcast.
Yeah.
I wanted to take a look at that. But while
it's been a busy week for podcasts.
Sure, but while we're getting political, look, what's the contention? Newsom is saying, Trump, you're calling in the National Guard to California. You're saying there's riots. We have the National Guard, Marines, Los Angeles Police Department, that they're instigating a lot of the violence.
Yeah.
So we're just fueling the fire. People are getting hurt.
Yeah.
People are getting stomped on with horses. People are getting shot with rubber bullets.
Yeah, they're using tear gas like it's, the Macy Day Parade.
Sure. Well, Snoopy's out and about. I mean, we are saying, look, California is a donor state. It's just, why is Miranda trying to screw up that relationship of California? We subsidize a lot of other states that don't pay as much in taxes.
Yeah.
We pay a 10% sales tax.
Yeah, we're gasping for air so that they have room to breathe.
That's right. So, Newsom was saying, look, what if we cut off that, supply? Because we have an IV drip to the United States is what? The 8th largest economy in the world?
It's a 4th. California?
Oh, geez, I was 4 off.
Yeah, I mean, it's been climbing steadily, and, we contribute a lot. We contribute more than any other state.
So when there's already a rocky relationship between these two podcasters, Newsom and Trump, and we've seen it in the Altadena fires. These are people that have been paying extremely high state taxes, federal taxes.
Yeah.
And
But when it comes time to take care of them,
no, there's nothing.
Everyone steps away.
That's right.
All the levers of power go, maybe not. Do you really need that money?
Do you really need that money? Because I think Trump's trying to play it off as, look, we can't even afford a second fucking, we can't even afford a boom op.
Yeah.
We can't even afford a second camera op.
Yeah.
We're hurting for cash.
Yeah, he'll pretend to pat his pockets as if there's nothing in there.
But, this was a really sensitive moment when Trump said, why would I call, because he was talking about Newsom on the phone.
Yeah.
Miranda said Newsom was lying his teeth off. I don't know. I wasn't on the phone. I wasn't invited. We're just podcasters.
Yeah.
And Trump said, why would I call Newsom at that time to talk about anything other than the National Guard?
I mean, the phone call was to deploy the troops. It was late at night. I said, your city's burning down. Your state is in bad trouble. You got to get the. Why would I call him at that time?
He said it was a setup.
Newsom and Trump seems like don't really have a relationship where they call each other and ask how they're doing.
It's a little upsetting.
And I just think you hear a lot in the news about the male loneliness epidemic.
Yeah.
You have two guys
who just drown themselves in their work and
You
don't
have-
think about building relationships with
No.
or building community with those around them. The support systems that they could find when they need help or are looking and feeling lost.
And this is the king of the country
Yeah.
and the king of a state.
Yeah.
Now, you would think that maybe they could have some sort of relationship because if you want to look at social hierarchy, kings oftentimes were some of the loneliest people.
Yeah.
They couldn't relate. They'd be surrounded by yes men or people that were backstabbers. They really, if you want to look at, power of monarchs, sure, that's one thing.
Yeah.
You look at the emotional well-being of monarchs, that's another problem.
So just look out for the kings. I mean, they're going through a lot. They have a lot on their minds and plates at all times. It's tough, and it's heartbreaking to be reminded of that when you realize that these guys don't really have like friend circles or like friend groups that they can trust and rely on and lean on in trying times.
But I want to focus on this moment really because, and it was my watershed moment.
Why would I call him at that time?
You said it was a setup.
Really?
Because I think it was a cry for help from Trump, saying, "Look, there's a lot of governors in the country. There's 50 of them.
Yeah.
Does every one of them have Trump's best interests? Guys like DeSantis, people like, sure, there's people that are going to say, yes, Trump.
Yeah.
I got your back.
Newsom, do they mean it?
Do they mean it? And I think he knows that him and Newsom in maybe another life could be friends.
Yeah.
I think it's tough because it's almost like, could theater guy be friends with the jock, right?
The baseball star.
I mean, we know that Newsom has a wicked left-handed curveball.
Yeah, he won't let anyone forget it.
Hell, he's got a great knuckleball. Got him into school, right?
Yeah, did.
Now, we know that Trump is very musical.
Yeah.
He played the flute.
I played, like for very short periods of time, the flute. Would you believe that?
Yeah, we learned that this episode. I mean, that was a bombshell.
He is musically brilliant.
But when you were little, you were found to be have a musical genius.
That's right. They said...
and I mean, we know before, there have been interviews where he said that, growing up, he wanted to be in musicals.
Yeah, and his dad slapped the flute out of his hand and shipped him off to military school. I mean, you have to wonder what that does to, a musically gifted individual.
But I wonder if Newsom was in a similar boat of having a father that really encouraged him in Palo Alto to say, Gavin.
Well, you learn to code or something like that.
Sure. And, I want you to grow up and be in Silicon Valley. And I said, Dad, I want to play
baseball.
Ball.
Yeah.
I want to play ball. I want to be a left-handed pitcher.
Yeah.
And
maybe Gavin's dad was a little more lenient and met him halfway and said, fine, grow up and be the governor, Gavin. You got this.
I see him as a James Dean type.
Yeah.
He went out, rebel without a cause, and, he did it. He became governor despite all this. As with Trump saying, look, I'm going to go ahead and become president.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to do it again because he said he won in 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I'll take his word for it. He's on a podcast. He's telling me that. Obviously, I believe something if it's on a podcast.
I don't know where the numbers went wrong.
Sure.
But
and, he said, the mark of a great president is 2 terms.
I always felt being 2-term was somehow, does that make sense? Yeah. Somehow psychologically important. And I became...
Especially doing 2 terms the way you did.
Yeah, well, especially the way I did it. And especially skipping. Yeah. Skipping one. But we did great in 2020, by the way. I won that election by so much.
I think he's really paying an homage to American history. He reminds me of FDR in a lot of ways. The FDR had 4 terms, Trump had 2. So FDR had a little leg up on him, right?
Yeah.
4 terms. That's a lot. That's Trump times 2.
Not 4 complete ones.
No, he died in office.
He won 4 ones.
Sure, he won 4 ones. That's important. But, FDR... we had the Great Depression and banks were closing. People were panicked, taking their money and stuffing into mattresses. And FDR said, let me inspire some confidence in this country. Let me start speaking to the people with fireside chats. Let me restore faith in the American banking system. We're going to create the SEC. We're going to get some regulation going. We're going to back banks. Now when you put money in banks, it's backed up to $250,000.
That's a lot.
By the government.
Sure. It's more than I've got.
I think Trump looked at these fireside chats and said, what if I kind of do that and talk to the people via podcasting? I think if FDR were around right now, fireside chat with FDR.
Yeah. No, that's a podcast on Audible. I could see it right now. Now, what did you think of the total Pam Bondi diss at 9 minutes and 45 seconds? When Miranda, names a couple of members of Trump's team, she names J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, and Trump cuts in and goes, great people. They're all great people. And then Miranda takes a beat, and then she adds on Pam Bondi.
I saw your a few of your cabinet members just a few minutes ago. Pete Hegseth, you had JD Vance, you had Kristi Noem. Great people, Pam Bondi.
And it makes you wonder, in both their minds, maybe both of them know that Pam hasn't quite earned that great person designation.
This is the attorney.
Yet, at least.
This is the attorney general.
Of course, yeah.
We're not familiar with some of the cast and crew of this administration.
Yeah. And this struck me in a moment. I was just like, oh, maybe there's a bit of tension at the moment between Pam and even Miranda, or Pam and Trump. I don't know. It just was,
Is it safe to say this episode got a little political?
It got a little catty.
Well, Cats the musical, we know Trump's a fan, right?
He is a fan.
Well, I hate to get a little QAnon, but maybe something got cut out from the edit. I mean, I don't fully trust the production of this.
About Pam Bondi? Something
Sure,
got cut?
maybe the editor cut something out. I don't know. I'm not trying to put on my tinfoil hat, but
Interesting.
again, with production that's been run amok like this, it kind of disintegrates the trust with the viewer and the producers. So it's a shame.
Yeah.
What do we think about the future of Pod Force One with Miranda Devine?
She teases that, we should expect other Washington bigwigs, insiders to be upcoming guests.
Please hit the like and subscribe buttons so that you won't miss any future interviews with the biggest names in Washington and the world.
So why jump the shark?
With
Sorry,
Trump as number
why
one.
jump the shark? Why start with Trump?
Yeah, I mean, that's really, that's going for the big slice of cake on day one.
I mean, I don't know if she's going to be top. If anything, I thought she might have I don't know, maybe
like Tulsi Gabbard or something.
I don't know, sure.
I mean, surely they're all going to be easier catches from here on out. Maybe she was like, here, let me summit Mount Everest first, and everything else will be a cakewalk.
I don't know.
It's interesting from an optics standpoint as the audience. We're just like, why would we tune back in for these other small fish?
Look,
but we might have to give it a watch. I mean, she could have some really enrapturing conversations with other world leaders, and maybe we're not giving her enough benefit of the doubt.
Well, I'd like to see Pod Force One get their shit together.
Yeah.
And then maybe they could practice with some of these world leaders. But again, let's spell it out. What do we need to do? Let's find some funding.
Yeah.
Let's get another camera operator. Let's get a boom up. The lav's fine. But, we want backup audio. Let's get plant mics, okay?
Yeah.
Let's get more coverage here. We don't need to bring in a big Hollywood podcast producer to say when you're getting an over-the-shoulder shot, reverse it. Yeah. Get that coverage, right? Even if you don't need it, it's better to have it and not need it than in the editing department, look at a shot and say, oh, shit. Uh-oh. Wish we got that.
Yeah,
we got that.
Trump's forehead is fully out of frame. You could be doing a Frankenstein surgery on his head just outside of the frame.
It's decapitating him. I mean, it was like Robespierre was behind that camera.
You don't know what's happening when he dips out of frame. I mean, as the audience, you get spooked a little bit.
Let's clean up the graphic. I don't know what's happening. This could just be a graphic pack, transition error.
Yeah.
The FPS is definitely wrong.
The motion keyframes may be too far apart.
Let's extend it. It can't be just half of a second, right?
Let's make it fluid. Feel fluid. The conversation should feel fluid, and that includes the transitions.
So let's get a seasoned animator working on the podcast.
Yeah.
Get the guy who did Gravity Falls on.
Yeah.
Get the Courage the Cowardly Dog guy on. I mean, any animator could come on, look at that, and tell you, let's make it longer. Let's fix the frame rate. Let's add some spice to it. I mean, there's just nothing exciting about it.
Hell, even a sound effect to accompany
that would be great. But now, we're doing their podcast producing pro bono at this point, right?
We're just consulting for them.
And we've been working in the podcast space for so long. I think some of these things come to us so easily.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know podcasts like the back of my hand at this point, right?
But when you're in the thick of it, of producing a show from the start, you're just in the woods, and you probably can't see straight.
I get that, but let's have multiple producers. Let's hire line producers. Let's have executive producers.
Yeah.
I mean, why are we running on a ragtag budget if we're going to be starting with people like Trump? Obviously, we're not really going to smash the hammer down until we see these mistakes happen twice.
Yeah.
Anything can be fixed after the first time. I don't want to end on a negative note.
Yeah.
I do believe in positivity.
Yeah.
Let's highlight everything that was great about them, because there was a lot of, technical aspects that were, I think, really cool.
Of course.
The Barry Lyndon aperture, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be shot in a milk bar, the next podcast episode, little homage to Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, it's possible. I thought you were talking about the dessert shop on Melrose. Or Fairfax, is it?
Hey, maybe we'll interview Tom Cruise and do kind of an Eyes Wide Shut thing, right? That was his last film.
That would be fun.
Maybe we'll do it in the trenches, Paths of Glory style. I don't know.
Maybe we'll get 2001: A Space Odyssey going and consult HAL 3000 on how to, conduct an actual podcast.
Yeah, an AI assistant or something, sure.
Yeah, could be awesome.
Maybe it'll be black and white, and it'll be kind of shot with felt tables,
Yeah. Well,
Dr. Strangelover, How I Learned to Love the Pod.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, this was, it was a good first endeavor, and I'm excited to see where Pod Force 1 goes. Plenty to clean up, but I'm just going to choose to have faith that
Let's
they will
be positive.
get there. Yeah.
And again, thank you for joining us. This is more of a political leaning episode. That's just because, the guest, Donald Trump, is a political guy.
Guess by
what?
nature.
Guess what? At the end of the day, we're going to have very different political opinions. We are podcasters in LA.
Yeah.
Obviously, we think ICE needs to leave California. Obviously, we think, people who got their houses burned down demand respect. They demand, to get paid for that. They should be treated fairly. There's a lot happening in California that we're going to disagree with Trump on. But guess what? Does that mean we're not going to be objective on his podcast? Yeah. F no.
No.
But we're going to call it like it is. So this cam up, better watch yourself.
Yeah.
Better effing watch
This is still
yourself.
the office of the President of the United States.
Yep.
He's currently trying to build a ballroom. We're entering an awesome era for the White House and the presidency, and
We are.
It's just going to be so exciting. And you have to clean up your shit if you're going to be filming the president. So take that lesson away.
Thank you, guys. We will see you next week, potentially breaking down the Costco guys on LOL Pod.
It's possible.
It's possible. I'd like to, but
Look,
if
that's
something
still
else
in the
pops up,
limelight,
sure.
Yeah. There could be a bigger fish in the pond that usurped that this week. So we'll see. But thank you for joining us. Have a great week and take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.